As the terror group ISIS marches across Iraq right now, Republican Senator John McCain says the Obama administration should have seen this crisis coming. On the Senate floor just a little while ago, he basically said, "I told you so." Listen to this.
There is a group of people, along myself and the senator from South Carolina, that predicted every single one of these events because of an American lack of reliability and American weakness, and the President of the United States declaring that conflicts are at an end when they are not. An exit from Iraq, and now an exit from Afghanistan without a strategy and without victory.
Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California is joining us now. He's a member of the House Intelligence Committee. So how do you respond to that kind of bitter criticism from Senator McCain, saying that the Obama administration failed in its withdrawal from Iraq, should have negotiated some sort of status of forces agreement to keep U.S. troops there?
Well, look, if you are always predicting the worst, sometimes you're going to be right. And when things don't go that badly, no one's going to remember that you predicted it would go badly. So, I think it's an oversimplification. Look, the situation in Iraq is dire. There's no question about it. At the same time, keeping a full American combat presence in Iraq, I don't think made sense. What's more, we couldn't get the Iraqis to agree to want to have us there. They wouldn't protect our troops if we kept them there from liability. So there was really no question we had to get out of Iraq. What's so vexing to me about this, Wolf, is that this is a problem largely of Maliki's making, not our making. Maliki has so sidelined the Sunni population, he's driven them into the arms of ISIL. And until that changes, I would be loath to make major commitments to the Iraqi government. Certainly we ought to help them with material support, but in terms of going beyond that, until this own government, this Iraqi government makes changes, I don't see an end to this horrible situation.
And you're right, the government of Nouri al-Maliki didn't enter into a status of forces agreement with the U.S., giving U.S. troops who might have remained immunity from Iraqi prosecution. But McCain and Lindsey Graham and other critics of the president say, you know what, the president really didn't want to stay there. He never wanted to be in Iraq to begin with. He was looking for an excuse to get out, and as a result really didn't negotiate seriously with the Iraqi government about such an immunity agreement, to which you say...
Well, to which I say, certainly the president didn't want us there to begin with, and I think the president has been vindicated in those terms. And in that respect, Senator McCain and others have been proved wrong over time in terms of our intervention in Iraq. But in terms of the administration trying to get a status of forces agreement, we did try. We did try hard. And the Iraqis, although privately some said they wanted us to stay, many did, publicly they weren't willing to sell it to the population. Ultimately, they weren't willing to deliver the agreement. Now, of course, they have that kind of buyer's remorse. But again, quite apart from whether we kept troops there, if Maliki was going to continue to sideline a huge segment of his population, they were going to have this problem. And I do think we ought to help them with material support, but it ought to be conditioned, even that ought to be conditioned on Maliki changing the nature of his government to be more inclusive of the Sunni population. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how much military force is applied, they're going to have this problem in Iraq.
Congressman, we're getting some breaking news into CNN from our Pentagon correspondent, Barbara Starr. She has now confirmed that Bo Bergdahl, the U.S. Army sergeant who was a prisoner by the Taliban for 5 years in Afghanistan and Pakistan, he is now about to fly back to the United States from the Landstuhl military hospital in Germany to San Antonio to a military hospital there. I don't know if you've heard about this already, but you are familiar with that very bitter exchange that the Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel had yesterday with Congressman Jeff Miller of Florida about why he was staying, Bo Bergdahl was staying so long in Germany. What's your reaction now that he is finally now about to get on a plane, if he hasn't yet boarded a plane, to fly back to the United States?
Well, I think that's very positive. It means that his condition, both physically and mentally, has stabilized sufficiently for him to come home. I know his family, I'm sure, desperately wants to see him. So I think it's positive. But, Wolf, I think you're right. I watched that exchange. I found it, with Jeff Miller, my colleague, utterly perplexing. I'm not sure what the implication or intimation was, that somehow the administration was trying to hide him for some reason. And I think Secretary Hagel was exactly right. We're going to let the doctors decide when he's ready to move, and only the doctors.
And one final question, Congressman, before I let you go. On Iraq, do you support U.S. airstrikes against targets in Iraq, insurgent targets in Iraq? Would you support that?
I'm not prepared to support it at this time. I am prepared to support greater material support to them, which may include air resources, but I'm not prepared to risk the lives of American pilots or to risk further being drawn back into the conflict there, particularly when we have a government in Maliki that has proven so resistant to what we've been recommending in terms of reconciliation with the Sunni population and bringing them into his government. So at this point, no, I'm not prepared to support that.
Congressman Adam Schiff of California, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.